The Beatles! Many artists of the 1960s released truly great live albums. Just to name a few, James Brown released Live at the Apollo. At Folsom Prison was released by Johnny Cash. The Beatles' fellow Capitol Records artists, the Beach Boys, even scored a #1 album on the charts with their 1964 live album, Beach Boys Concert. Capitol Records had similar plans to release an album of live material by the Beatles. Unfortunately, no such release came to be during the Beatles' active years. For that matter, it would be years following their 1970 breakup before an official live release of the Beatles would surface. We'll explore the reason for this further in this video. The Beatles have been one of the most bootleg bands in history. In fact, rampant bootleg recordings have even shaped various official releases over the years. For example, the unofficial release of the 1973 compilation
Alpha Omega
motivated the official gold standard of Beatles compilations, 1962 to 1966 and 1967 to 1970, otherwise known as the Red and the Blue albums. Along the same line, bootlegged live recordings of the Beatles motivated the revisitation of archived live material which had long since been disregarded by Capitol Records. Capitol Records' disgust with the revenue generated by unofficial live material of the Beatles boiled over in 1977, when independent record label Lingasong released the album Live at the Star Club in Hamburg, Germany, 1962, a collection of very poor quality mono recordings of the Beatles, performing during one of their later Hamburg residencies. As stated previously, Capitol Records had planned a live release of the Beatles as early as 1964. An August 23, 1964 concert performance from the Hollywood Bowl was even recorded for this purpose. However, the sound quality was deemed commercially inadequate for release. Former Beatles producer George Martin stated of the recordings, "Technically, the results were disappointing. The conditions for the engineers were arduous in the extreme. The chaos, I might almost say panic, that reigned at these concerts was unbelievable unless you were there. Only 3-track recording was possible. The Beatles had no fold-back speakers, so they could not hear what they were singing, and the eternal shriek from 17,000 healthy lungs made even a jet plane inaudible." As a side note, less than a minute of twist and shout from the recorded live concert performance was included on the track The Beatles Look at Life off of the November 1964 Capitol album The Beatles Story. Talk about inadequate for release. During their 1965 tour of America, the Beatles returned to the Hollywood Bowl. Capitol Records recorded these August 29th and 30th performances by the group. Unfortunately, the quality of these recordings was disappointingly equivalent to the concert recordings from a year earlier. The volume of screaming fans again made it difficult for the technology of the day to capture a quality recording. How to account for this hysteria, known as Beatlemania? One account from a distraught father and possible voice actor for cartoon characters went as follows.
It's a mob, they're just a part of the mob. They're monkey see, monkey do, so they come running, that's all. It's like a bunch of monkeys,
All right, that's great. Did that guy remind anybody else of Dan Aykroyd's SNL character, Irwin Mainway?
That's your opinion, you know what I mean?
I digress. In the end, the concept for a live album was abandoned by Capitol Records, and the tapes would gather dust in the Capitol vaults for years. It's rumored that Phil Spector was offered the opportunity to make something of the live tapes in the early 70s, soon after he had completed work on the Let It Be album, yet he either lacked interest to complete the project or failed to produce anything worthy of release. Ultimately, in 1977, Capitol Records turned to George Martin to make something of the 3-track tapes recorded at the 1964 and 1965 Hollywood Bowl concerts. Working with recording engineer Jeff Emmerich, Martin cleaned up the audio as best he could with the technology then available to him, and produced an end result that was released by Capitol and EMI in May of '77. A dozen-plus years after the recordings were made, some finally saw the light of day as part of the group's first and only official live concert album, The Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. While George Martin did a fine job producing and compiling this live album from what he had to work with, the sound was still not great. Those ever-present screams of mostly teen girls is an entity absorbed into the recordings. This, of course, makes these recordings technically inferior to many other concert albums of the time. The screams are nearly equal in the mix to the guitars, bass, drums, and vocals. At the very least, it's a unique listening experience. What At the Hollywood Bowl lacks in technical superiority, it makes up for as an excellent historical document which pretty well captures the excitement of a Beatles concert. If you're curious what Beatlemania sounded like, I imagine this is as close to it as fans who weren't there are going to get. To again quote George Martin from the original vinyl sleeve notes of At the Hollywood Bowl, "It may be a poor substitute for the reality of those times, but it is now all there is." The official website of the Beatles represents the album as such. At the Hollywood Bowl captures the joyous exuberance of the band's 3 sold-out concerts at Los Angeles' Hollywood Bowl in 1964 and 1965. As Capitol Records in the US and EMI in the UK had hoped, the album went on to perform very well in sales, as well as on the charts, even reaching number 1 and number 2 on the charts in the UK and US respectively. The US and UK LP was released as a gatefold sleeve, with a simple front cover featuring the stage shell at the Hollywood Bowl and a set of concert tickets, one from August 23, 1964, and one from August 29, 1965.
Imagine paying $5 to see the Beatles!
The inner gatefold contained a concert photo overlaid with Beatles memorabilia, and the back cover had sleeve notes written by George Martin, the track listing, recording information, and credits. I first heard At the Hollywood Bowl on cassette in the late 80s or early 90s. Admittedly, it wasn't an album that made much of an impact on me, and I didn't listen to it much at all. But I've come to appreciate it more over the years. While At the Hollywood Bowl has been long out of print and did not go on to be released on CD in this form, I do have a needle drop CD version of the original US pressing of the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, with a nice disc design. Following the issue of At the Hollywood Bowl album, additional Hollywood Bowl performances have been issued on various other releases over the years. These releases include filmed excerpts from the Hollywood Bowl included in the 1995 documentary series The Beatles Anthology. In 1996, the August 30th, 1965 performance of Babies in Black was issued on the Real Love maxi single. The 2006 release of the Love album featured I Want to Hold Your Hand from the 1964 concert. This performance on Love is a mashup of both the live performance and the studio version of the song. Very interestingly done. Finally, Live at the Hollywood Bowl was released on CD September 9th, 2016. What is it about that date? The album was also made available for digital download and streaming. In addition, a 180-gram gatefold vinyl edition was offered in November of 2016. Live at the Hollywood Bowl was essentially a remixed, remastered, and expanded version of At the Hollywood Bowl. As stated on the Beatles' official website, while the Beatles' Live at the Hollywood Bowl references the long out-of-print 1977 album, it is an entirely new release, directly sourced from the original 3-track tapes of the concert. The album artwork was changed, but it retained the original track listing and featured 2 previously unreleased tracks, plus Babies in Black and I Want to Hold Your Hand, which I previously mentioned as having appeared elsewhere. As explained by Giles Martin, Capitol Studios called saying they discovered some Hollywood Bowl 3-track tapes in their archive. The tapes were transferred and an improvement over the tapes kept in the London archive were noted. In addition, Giles Martin had worked with a team on demix technology that offered the ability to remove and separate sounds from a single track. Giles went on to state, "Technology has moved on since my father worked on the material all those years ago. Now there's improved clarity, and so the immediacy and visceral excitement can be heard like never before." How's the new and improved version sound? Still not great. There's a definite improvement to the original. However, the sound of screaming fans is still an ever-present element, as perhaps it should remain, but it still makes this album less than worthy of repeated listening. While I enjoyed the new release, when A-Bing the two versions, I actually prefer the original album. While the remix provides a noticeable clarity to the vocals, there's a certain artifact present from the demix technology that sounds to me as if the life has been squashed out of the instruments. The original just seems to breathe more. That being said, I applaud the work Giles Martin and Sam O'Kell did on this project, and I think this is a worthy reissue to sit along the original as a companion. The included 24-page booklet with Live at the Hollywood Bowl is very nice to have, with period articles, interesting photos, liner notes by David Frick, and a respectfully retained reprint of the 1977 original vinyl sleeve notes from George Martin. As an alternative for early live Beatles recordings, I recommend checking out some of the BBC material. In most cases, these recordings provide an improved listening experience, albeit in mono. You get all the energy without the constant ear-piercing shrill. Live at the Hollywood Bowl was advertised as a companion to the Ron Howard-directed film 8 Days a Week, The Touring Years, a documentary feature film about the band's early career. I'll take a moment here to recommend this film. It's excellent. If you haven't yet seen it, it's available on Hulu and it has been shown on PBS. Of course, it's also available on DVD and Blu-ray. I own the 2 Blu-ray special edition with 100 plus minutes of special features and a 64-page booklet featuring rare photos and an introduction from Ron Howard. The film was given a limited theatrical run in select theaters in 2016.
Remember going to the movies?
On September 17, 2016, I took a trip to Princeton, New Jersey with a very special junior Beatles fan to view a screening of 8 Days a Week at Princeton Garden Theater across from Princeton University. Loaded up with popcorn, Twizzlers, and boxed water, we enjoyed the film, which was even succeeded by a special screening of a stunningly cleaned-up version of the 1965 film of the Beatles live at Shea Stadium. Additionally, music fans, no trip to Princeton would be complete without a visit to Princeton Record Exchange, who just so happened to have in stock a particular record the day we were in town to see 8 Days a Week. If you're an existing Beatles fan on the fence about the newer Live at the Hollywood Bowl, or a new Beatles fan who's never heard these live performances, I offer one final Giles Martin quote. "What we hear now is the raw energy of 4 lads playing together to a crowd that loved them. This is the closest you can get to being at the Hollywood Bowl at the height of Beatlemania. We hope you enjoy the show."
I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please beat that like button and click the bell icon to receive notifications of future videos of similar content coming soon. And as always, I sincerely thank you for watching.